Daily Words of God. God does not require of people the mere ability to talk about reality. That would be too easy, would it not? Why, then, does God speak of entry into life? Why does He talk about transformation? If people are capable only of empty talk about reality, then can they achieve a transformation in their disposition? The good soldiers of the kingdom are not trained to be a group of people who can only talk about reality or boast. Rather, they are trained to live out God's words at all times, to remain unyielding no matter what setbacks they face, and to live constantly in accordance with God's words and not to return to the world. This is the reality of which God speaks. This is God's requirement of man. Thus, do not regard the reality spoken of by God as being overly simple. Mere enlightenment from the Holy Spirit does not equal the possession of reality. Such is not the stature of man. It is the grace of God, to which man contributes nothing. Each person must endure Peter's sufferings, and even more, possess Peter's glory, which they live out after they have gained the work of God. Only this can be called reality. Do not think that you possess reality just because you can talk about it. That is a fallacy. Such thoughts do not accord with God's will and have no actual significance. Do not say such things in the future. Extinguish such sayings. All those with a false understanding of God's words are unbelievers. They do not have any real knowledge, much less any real stature. They are ignorant people who lack reality. In other words, all those who live outside of the essence of God's words are unbelievers. Those deemed unbelievers by people are beasts in the eyes of God, and those deemed unbelievers by God are people who do not have God's words as their life. It can therefore be said that those who do not possess the reality of God's words and who fail to live His words out are unbelievers. God's intention is to cause everyone to live out the reality of His words. Not merely to have everyone talk about reality, but more than that, to enable everyone to live out the reality of His words. The reality that man perceives is too superficial. It has no value and cannot fulfill God's will. It is too lowly and not even worthy of mention. It lacks too much and falls far too short of the standards of God's requirements. You will each be subjected to a major inspection to see who among you merely know how to talk about your understanding without being able to point out the path, as well as to discover who among you are useless pieces of trash. Remember this from now on. Do not speak of empty knowledge. Only talk about the path of practice and about reality. Transition from real knowledge to real practice, and then transition from practice to real living out. Do not lecture others, and do not talk about real knowledge. If your understanding is a path, then let your words go free upon it. If it is not, then please shut your mouth and stop talking. What you say is useless. You speak of understanding in order to deceive God and make others envy you. Is that not your ambition? Are you not deliberately toying with others? Is there any value in this? If you talk about understanding after you have experienced it, you will not be seen as boasting. Otherwise, you are someone who spits out arrogant words. There are many things in your actual experience that you cannot overcome, and you cannot rebel against your own flesh. You are always doing whatever you want, never satisfying God's will. Yet you still have the gall to talk about theoretical understanding. You are shameless. You still are so bold as to speak of your understanding of God's words. How impudent of you! Orating and boasting have become your very nature, and you have become accustomed to doing so. Whenever you wish to speak, you do so with ease, smoothly, and in an offhanded manner. But when it comes to practicing, you indulge in ornamentation. Is this not a way to fool others? You may be able to trick men, but God cannot be deceived. Men are unaware and have no discernment, but God is serious about such matters, and He will not spare you. Your brothers and sisters might advocate for you, praising your understanding and admiring you. But if you possess no reality, the Holy Spirit will not spare you. Perhaps the practical God will not seek your faults, but God's Spirit will ignore you, and that will be difficult enough for you to bear. Do you believe this? Talk more about the reality of practice. Have you forgotten already? Talk more about practical paths. Have you forgotten already? Offer fewer lofty theories and worthless, inflated talk. It is best to begin practice starting now. Have you forgotten these words? Do you not understand at all? Do you have no comprehension of God's will?